guys, and welcome back to Art a la Carte. In this episode I'm going to do kind of similar to what I did in a previous video where I show you a speed painting that I did and then tell you kind of what was I thinking. The piece that I did in this video had a lot of levels of questioning on my part as to what am I doing. I took a lot of chances with this painting, did a lot of things I wasn't sure if it would turn out, and yeah, you can be the judge in the end to see if you like the painting or not. But yeah, so let's get on to this. What was I thinking? So a lot of times artists will, when they get ready to do a painting, spend a lot of time with the preparation of that painting. They will do a lot of thumbnails, they'll do a lot of practice sketches. I rarely ever have that happen. I usually, when I come up with these really fun painting ideas, I will be cleaning up my studio, getting ready to go to bed, and inspiration will strike and I have to paint it right then and there. So this is what happened with this one. It was late at night and I was going across some photos that I really like, and I found this one photo of this little girl. She was kind of dressed up in her little coat and she just had this impish face, like she wasn't human. She was like fair folk, like a changeling or something, and I had to create her in a painting. I had to use that kind of as my inspiration. So I went ahead and got a piece of watercolor paper and I taped it down. I wasn't even sure if I was going to do watercolor or colored pencil or not, but I was pretty sure I was going to do a lot of stuff, so I thought, well, we'll just go with watercolor paper, because yeah. And originally I kind of had wanted her to, like, she was blowing a kiss, but I couldn't get the angle of that hand right, so I went with instead kind of her cupping her hands together, looking like she was holding something. And originally I wanted it to be something that was glowing, so that it looked like this light would be cascading from her hand. And I'd never tried that before, and I kind of thought that'd be fun to try. But then as I was sketching in the rest of her, I began to add in a lot of elements, and there was a lot of levels and layers to this drawing. And so I actually ended up at the end deciding not to do the glowing from her hands, just to try to actually save this picture and make it work. So I might try a glowing picture again later, probably while it's still playing in my head. I want to see what I can do with that. So I was kind of thinking I wanted some butterflies to put in this picture. So I thought, 2 or 3 butterflies would be great. And so I went on my phone and kind of looked at some different photographs that I have of butterflies and began putting in, 1 or 2, and then pretty soon there was like 20. I was like, wow, that's a lot of butterflies. But it was fun. But with each butterfly, you have another little kind of level to your painting, things you have to kind of, keep clean, and it just, yeah, I was creating a lot of work for myself in this painting. But I just couldn't stop. I was some crazed art woman. I couldn't stop, so I got it all sketched in, and then I went ahead and erased almost everything so that it would be kind of really nice and clean. I wanted to lay in at least my base color in watercolor. I didn't want the pencil to kind of come up through, so I erased that off and then began to put in my very first layers of paint. So I started with the face first and laid in the base foundation for the face, which is just my highlight color, like the lightest lights that I would have. And then I would begin to go in and put in my darker shades after that. So you'll see the shades underneath the eyes and around the nose, and began to build that out. And at this point I began to realize this painting is going to be a lot of work. What I thought might take me an hour to do, I think this painting in total took, not including drying times and things like that, but I think a total of like 3.5 to 4 hours to paint this. So as I'm painting this, I'm like, oh, I just don't even know if I can pull this off. I had to make a decision if I wanted to keep all the areas with butterflies, if I wanted to keep that clean, or if I wanted to see if I could just pull the paint in. I went ahead and made the decision that I would just go ahead and try to pull color into the butterflies and see if I could make it work. So I'm getting in a little bit more detail. I've got the background base color in there, so now begins the part where I start adding in a little bit more of the dimensions. So I like starting with the nose or the eyes first, just because that gives kind of more character to the face and gives me hope that this painting might exist. And I have to say that after I started painting, I realized that one eye was off. It wasn't as big, it wasn't the same shape, it was down a little bit lower, it was smaller. So I thought, that's weird. So I decided just to make it really weird, and I would give her 2 different color irises. So I gave her one really bright blue eye, and then I gave her a really nice purple eye for the other one, because I thought, hey, might as well go with the flow. So here I'm painting her lips, and I began to get a little nervous there with the lips, and especially the Cupid's bow, which is kind of the little dent in between your lips by your nose, comes down there as your Cupid's bow. And she was looking very feline at this point. I was like, maybe too much shadow there. But I decided to let it rest, and I would come back and kind of work with it. For the eyes, I decided that I would cover up a lot of the purple eye, and that would kind of hide the fact that I had a misproportion in the design of her eyes. And you can definitely do that if you find something that's just not kind of working. If you can find a way to kind of put it behind something, that kind of helps. So I wasn't too worried about it. Every step I took was like putting a gigantic jigsaw puzzle together, because I wasn't positive what the end product would look like. I had an idea in my head, but not a definite finished plan in my head. So I just took every step one at a time. Another really big inspiration for the character in this painting was a musician called Lindsay Sterling. If you've never heard her, she's on YouTube. She's an amazing violinist, and she has just this very pixie-like face. I kind of took a little inspiration from her. So if the butterflies weren't enough, I decided I wanted leaves covering her head. Unfortunately, her hair was already so dark that the leaves and the hair kind of blended together and made them look a little bit translucent. So here I had this greenish blob. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, because obviously I had done something and it wasn't working. So instead of throwing the painting away, which at that point I was kind of thinking, oh, let's maybe just scrap it and we'll start over again tomorrow, I thought, well, let's just keep going. We'll work on a different part of the painting, and we'll kind of contemplate the future of the leaves in her hair. And so went ahead and did that. So yeah, I started adding all these different kinds of butterflies. I didn't have a direct color scheme. I kind of went some blue ones and some golden ones and yellow ones, and then I thought, you know, I'll just make them any color I want. I don't have to stick with one thing or another. So yeah, just began to push myself. I thought either this painting is going to work out or it's going to be ruined. One or the other. I'll just keep working on areas. So with the leaves, I started beginning adding a little bit more texture, pushing in some shadows to make them a lot darker than what I originally kind of had planned them to be. But because her hair was so dark, I had to push them even darker. It's really easy to make things darker. It's a little bit harder to make things lighter. So I knew the leaves were going to have to be much, much darker. And I also had this random yellow butterfly that I decided, yeah, let's be smart and put a yellow butterfly on top of the already messed up green leaves, which makes it kind of this light, blobby, green leafed butterfly. But I thought, hey, it will work. And to give myself some hope, I thought, let's just get some really good contrast. I find that's one of the biggest differences in my pictures, is if I can get that good contrast, good darks against really nice bright lights, it adds a depth to my picture and gives me hope. So I began to plan in that, but I thought before I put in too much darks, I want to even out the foliage upon her face, and so decided I would put some around kind of her shoulder on the other side. So you can see I kind of put a little bit of those leaves there, and I thought, well, I should probably block out the rest of the butterflies that I wanted before I started adding that super duper dark contrast. And you'll often see that I pause a little bit. I'm contemplating my next move in this painting. Definitely it's a dance, because you have to take that step to put in your darks, but you don't want to step too quickly and then go, oh, I wish I would have put something there that's lighter before I put that dark in there. So you just have to look at it really good and then just go for it. So I just went for it. I thought, well, we'll just figure it out. So I'm really getting into nice greens in here. I didn't want a solid color of green, so you'll see I'll put a little bit of purple, a little bit of blue, a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of gray, and then I thought, let's get some nice dark in there, so then I just pretty much covered it all up with black. Yeah, it's a process. At this point is where I decided, yeah, I'm not going to attempt to do the reflected glowing shine upon her face. I was already overwhelmed with what I had to work with, and I thought, I think I can make it work, but I don't know that I can pull off a reflective glow from her hands. So let's just tackle what I can do and see what happens. So I'm making those, finalized decisions there, adding in my shadows and wondering what am I doing with my life. It's like you get these glimpses of hope when you're doing your paintings, where you think you can see what the final product might look like, and then make a stroke of not genius and you go, why am I doing this? And you're pretty sure that the last 2 to 3 hours of work have not been aren't going to be productive. But you just keep going. I find that a lot of times as artists, we give up too quick. We work on a piece and it's not coming together the way we want, or we get frustrated and we just scrap the whole piece. I have, in fits of artistic tantrum, balled up more pieces of paper and thrown it into the trash bin. But I really think, had I just kept working on it, worked on another part of the picture, worked on an entirely different picture and put it aside and come back to it later, that a lot of my pieces would have turned out. But I gave up too quickly. And so the last couple of years I've really learned just to stick with it, not to scrap something just because I make one mistake or 2 mistakes or 20 mistakes in it. Just to keep seeing if I can fix it. And fixing it doesn't always mean erasing something, especially with watercolor. You can't erase it. You just have to keep working with it. And it might change what your original plan for this piece was, but it doesn't mean that it still can't be an amazing piece. So I stuck with it. I kept adding in my, my contrast and getting it, and just kept getting darker and darker and darker, which was okay. And I knew I had to come to a part where I began to work on, the actual butterflies, and I was still kind of planning, did I want to keep them just the colors that they were, or did I want to add in actual patterns? Because an actual pattern on butterflies can be pretty challenging because you want to really mimic each wing to mirror each other. And there's a lot of butterflies, that's a lot of mirroring. So while I was thinking about that, I decided to switch to a different medium. And so I pulled out my color pencils and began to work with those. And this is when things began to pop. The color pencils on this painting just brought out these amazing highlights that I had gotten too dark in and had lost. But with the colored pencils, I was able to bring those out. So that's another thing to think about, is you don't have to stick with one medium. If you're painting, you can switch that up after, and pull in something else. You can use 2 different types of paints, watercolor and acrylics. You could do ink and paint, or like here, doing colored pencils with my painting. And it just really was a great addition, and it gave me some newfound hope for this piece. And so I decided to go ahead and tackle on making patterns on the butterfly. So I went and got some, I believe I did this part with Indian ink. And it gives you this nice vibrant color, and it won't run once it's dried. It won't bleed into anything else, where if you did this with regular watercolor, it would eventually, you could put more water and you could kind of wake it up, it would bleed. So you have to make sure that wherever you put your black is exactly where you want it, because there's really no scrubbing it out. But the nice thing is with Indian ink is once it's dried, you can put another wash over top of it and it's not going to bleed. So I didn't know if I was going to put any more contrasting shadows, so I decided to do this part with the ink instead. And as I'm doing this, I just really began to have fun, because adding the individual patterns to the butterflies and looking at different kinds of variations of butterflies and types of butterflies, this painting then really began to take on a personality and really began to be something special. And even though I really wanted her to be the main focus, the more detail I put into the butterflies, the more it pushed her back. And so she was like, either you see her first and then the butterflies are the secondary surprise, or you notice the butterflies first and then you see her, where before it was just all about her. And so they really kind of complement each other, I think. They're kind of fun. And it was fun to kind of find these different types of butterflies. I really did a lot of searching online to find out different species of butterflies and different patterns. I don't say that anyone is any specific type. I didn't get that extreme detailed with, but it was fun to see how butterfly patterns kind of fit together. So yeah, I've done a couple videos where I've done just a single butterfly or 2 or 3 butterflies, but this was the most that I've ever had. And it was fun also because I didn't have them all with just their wings spread. I had some with their wings closed, and I even have one that their wing is in the middle of a flap, so their wings are kind of downward. So that was a nice bit of a challenge. So yeah, I encourage you guys to try out different things like that as well. If you draw butterflies, don't draw them all in the same position or the same, design pattern of their wings. I have a little bit more of butterflies and I have a couple more that have, I guess, maybe moths in there. Yeah. And then I started going back with just a really, really loose amount of paint, just a lot of water with it, and began to add in just some very light shadows to kind of put in that contrast. And so this is the point where you kind of work on it and you think, am I done? It's a good looking picture. Am I done? And you play a little bit more with it and you think, am I done? And then you play a little bit more. And then I started grabbing my colored pencils and I just began running them across the paper. And it was just, the way they fell on the paper was just kind of magical. And I began to kind of shade around there so there's like sunbeams coming out with the white. I took a lot of chances and I couldn't tell you if this painting was going to succeed or fail, but I did what I could and it was a great amount of fun. So let me go ahead and reveal to you guys the final piece. So this is it. And I think it turned out really, really nice. This is one that I'm actually enjoying displaying in my art studio for right now. I will be putting it up for sale on my Etsy shop, so you can, if you're interested in purchasing the original, you can head over there and check it out. But until someone decides to give it a home, I will enjoy it in my studio. So hopefully this encouraged you in your creating of your pieces, that if you're working on a piece that just you make a mistake and you get frustrated, that maybe you won't give up on your pieces as quickly, that you'll push through and see if they can become something wonderful, even if it isn't what originally you had planned for in a painting or a piece. It still can be something great. I am planning on doing a video where I talk about, do I ever give up on a picture? So be looking for that probably in the next month or so. If you have any questions about this painting or the painting process, or any questions about art in general, make sure to leave those in the description box below. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, well, thank you and welcome to the wonderful world of art. And I love to share with you guys how to draw and paint and all sorts of fun things. I share videos with you guys 3 times a week, so make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. And until next time, God bless you guys, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye!